Well, look who it isn't. Welcome, is that what he says? I think so. It's what I always thought he said. Welcome, huge movie fanatic Nate. Stopping on by, this time to review a movie that I actually pretty much grew up with, first saw in the 80s, recorded off TV. The whole reason I'm reviewing this is you may or may not know that I recently showcased this Laserdisc, the original North American Laserdisc release of this. And that obviously prompted me to watch the Laserdisc. I wanted to watch the Laserdisc and see if it was in any good condition. Turns out it was great condition. Thank you very much, Pioneer. And yeah, so I figured, well, after I showcase the Laserdisc, I might as well review the movie since I recently reviewed the movie. So as I said, my history with this movie goes all the way back to the late 80s, recorded off TV. At the time, I was probably a Jaws fan, and which meant I was pretty much a Roy Scheider fan. I'm pretty sure the first thing I probably would have saw Roy Scheider in was Jaws. Also was, I was introduced to 2001: A Space Odyssey at an early age, which meant I also saw 2010. Yeah, it's so weird. It's 2010, the year we made contact. So I knew Roy Scheider at the time from probably Jaws in 2010, the year we made contact. And it was cool to see Roy Scheider again, in this time as a kind of a Vietnam vet who's turned whatever helicopter pilot. He works for the police department. He's kind of like, so many of the guy heroes of the 80s are just kind of just a loner, kind of a bachelor guy with a girlfriend situation, which as the movie starts, the girlfriend situation isn't good, but I guess they kind of get back together under the magic of the whatever the hell that thingy gives her, is just like a table romantic kiss under a tablecloth. I always thought that was the weirdest scene, and I still do. I think it's it's like she's looking for her blender. Which incidentally, we had that exact same blender, and if we still do and I find it, I'll like put a picture of it in here or something. We actually had that exact same blender, and so she's, they're broken up, and she's come over to get her blender and finds this thing that he'd bought, a tablecloth or something that she's gonna wear as a wedding dress. I don't know. That is just I'm crying tears because that's just the weirdest like romantic scene in a movie possibly ever, before Human Centipede would come out, of course. But anyway, that's another topic. For the record, I haven't seen those and don't plan on seeing those, but I'm just making a joke. But yeah, so then it's just like she throws that tablecloth over them. I'm assuming it's a table. I don't know what the hell it is. Tablecloth, and they just like embrace in this weird kiss that she can't even see, and it's just sounds of like passion, and it's just like, what the hell. But anyway,
this is beautiful. I love it.
yeah, tears of laughter coming out of my. But anyway, so I don't know how old Roy Scheider is in this movie, but he's dating this woman, presumably in her probably 30s, is like the love interest, which it doesn't spend a whole lot of time in this movie other than going on a train ride. Is that the same place from The Jerk? It might very well be, but yeah, this movie just basically follows Roy Scheider, who's basically partnered up with this Daniel Stern, and this is probably the first movie I've ever seen Daniel Stern in as well. This is before, I think I saw Blue Thunder just before I started getting into horror movies, so I would later on see Daniel Stern, of course, in Chud. Probably most well known for Chud, in addition to that little known film Home Alone 1 and 2. But he was also in Christmas Story 2, which I think I reviewed years ago, which was just kind of laughable. But so Daniel Stern is actually a little bit on the chubby side in this movie. Maybe he saw himself in Blue Thunder, and he's like, "Oh, I got to do something about that." But yeah, I think it's the chubbiest I've ever seen Daniel Stern. But he, and I think this is it Warren Oates? I want to say it might very well be his last movie, because at the end credits he's like tribute. You get some tribute. So it might very well be Warren Oates' last movie. He's like Roy Scheider's freaking boss, and he pairs him up with Lyman Good, who's played by Daniel Stern, and the situation with them going out and doing this helicopter thing, and Lyman Good, wanting to go check out the nude, movie star, and over there by or around or in Encino, kind of gets the I don't even know we'll just call him the Roy Scheider character in trouble, and he's kind of, is he put on like this brief suspension or something? Meanwhile, there's this stuff happening with this politician chick who gets attacked in her yard, and for some reason, I don't know why Roy Scheider really even cares about that incident or whatever, but I guess when false claims about what happened with that situation are made aware to him, regarding things that it wasn't. I think they witnessed. Oh yeah, they were called to the last called to that situation where that woman was being attacked in her yard, and they witnessed the last half of it. So he witnessed it, and the official story, of course, doesn't match with what he witnessed and stuff. So I think that kind of gets his eyebrows up, and he goes back and digs through the crime scene and finds this piece of paper. And I don't think that really means anything other than like Thor, which I can't remember what the hell Thor ends. It's like an acronym for something, in relation to this Blue Thunder helicopter. So this movie is kind of like it's like half like, whatever, intrigue, mystery, kind of what's going on, and half action movie. And, it's, let's face it, for a kid like, because back in I don't know if this movie would have predated the Airwolf TV show. It might have come out before Airwolf the TV show, because me being a kid of the 70s and the 80s, obviously I grew up with the Airwolf TV show and things like that, Knight Rider, A-Team, all this kind of stuff. And I'm not exactly sure when, if this movie came before the Airwolf TV show. There was also, which I got the complete DVD collection, there was also a Blue Thunder TV show, which was interesting, and I want to say it had Dana Carvey in it as a, maybe the comedic sidekick or whatever. But yeah, so this was right around the time of Airwolf, and admittedly, although Airwolf didn't get like a theatrical movie, or Airwolf's probably more familiar to people, but then Blue Thunder is. I think it's more of an iconic design and stuff, but Blue Thunder has a theatrical movie to its credit with Roy Scheider and Daniel Stern and Warren Oates and all these kind of people. So yeah, as the movie unfolds, it's just this kind of like this intrigue about what's going on, and all of a sudden the brief spat with Roy Scheider and his boss Warren Oates is kind of put to rest when Warren Oates' character calls him to the government's doing this this demonstration of this Blue Thunder helicopter at some hide unknown location early morning in the desert, and kind of blows Roy Scheider's character's socks off. And I think Warren Oates' character's there as well, and it's just like, oh my god. And when the helicopter just does all this, it's doing this combat, urban combat, urban pacification combat, situation with these just dummies and cardboard cutouts, and well, probably not cardboard, wooden cutouts, and of civilians, and terrorists on buses and all this kind of stuff, and using the laser fine targeting to try to target only the bad guys and not the civilians, and all this kind of stuff. And when the helicopter Blue Thunder lands, Roy Scheider is surprised and disgusted to see that it's his old war buddy, played by Malcolm McDowell. From the it must be really hard, like with some of your first roles being like your most iconic, obviously Alex from A Clockwork Orange, and I've never seen Caligula, but I mean, I know he's in Caligula, and so much of his, I think it's fair to say, I don't know, Malcolm McDowell's whole filmography, but I think it's fair to say a lot of his more notable work was done when he was, early in his career, and the kind of the stuff that it's, they go on to do for the remainder of his career would be not so iconic. But I mean, it's at least, I guess an actor would rather have some iconic roles, and only go downhill from there than have no iconic roles, I guess. But it's kind of a bummer to do your iconic roles early in your career and then just be relegated to roles like this, and Tank Girl and Star Trek Generations and all this kind of stuff later on as your career is dwindling. But Malcolm McDowell as the bad guy, and like I say, I'm pretty sure that line when Malcolm McDowell's character first sees Roy Scheider's character, I'm pretty sure he said, "Well, look who it isn't." If that's not what he said, it's what I always thought he said. You know, when you're a kid, you watch movies, a lot of times you hear things differently than they really are, and that's kind of the fun thing about seeing movies as a kid, you know. But there's this, you know, this rivalry between Malcolm McDowell, Roy Scheider, and they each have their own fancy cars. Like Roy Scheider's got, is it a Trans Am, and Malcolm McDowell's got like a Corvette. So it's like they're just, you know, measuring their you know whats throughout the course of the movie, and you know, oh, whose car goes faster, and Roy Scheider goes in and out of cones and stuff. And there's this interesting, I don't know, is it a Casio? I don't know what kind of watch it is, but it's also, this movie's also kind of like a sales, you know, a sales device for this watch, Casio possibly, or whatever Roy Scheider's got. He measures, he checks his sanity with a wristwatch. You know what, you just have to see the movie. It's just I'm pretty sure Casio just came over to, you know, Columbia and said, hey, can you, you know, we'll pay you a lot of money if you get this watch in the movie somewhere or whatever. And well, that, you know, the rest is history. But I won't spoil the whole movie. You know, all I'll say is once again, like so often is the case with movies, in my opinion, there's a lot of truth in this movie, just masquerading as a fictional movie, but it's a refreshing movie because it is very much like kind of in a way, I don't know, you probably never see movies like this anymore. It's actually really surprising that they even made it in the 80s or at all, but kind of like it's you know, the Roy Scheider and Daniel Stern characters are kind of like two guys versus the system in a way, and what Roy Scheider ends up doing at the end is taking the system's, you know, tough-ass helicopter, Blue Thunder, and kind of trying to get justice, you know, with the system's, you know, property, if you will. And I will say that every time I watch this movie, I'm surprised how, like, early in the movie, like, he gets in the helicopter and he's like, oh, God, yeah. When he gets in there to listen to that Lyman Good recording, I'm like, I always forget, oh, God, he's in the helicopter for the rest of the movie. So it's like he spends a good part of the last, you know, whatever part of the movie in the helicopter flying around doing this and that, and his girlfriend helps and with this and that because they got a tape with some evidence on it that they have to get to the, you know, the news media, this certain reporter or whatever, so he can, you know, break the news on the TV and all this kind of stuff. And another thing, this guy must have been an actual reporter in LA, the guy who's like the Asian guy in the RoboCop movie, you know, like, as I always thought, because I think I'd seen RoboCop before this, which means I didn't see Blue Thunder until either, you know, late 87 or sometime in 88 or whatever. But yeah, that guy doing he must have been a real news anchor that they just got for RoboCop or whatever. But he's also as news anchor in this movie or whatever. But yeah, so this movie, you know, I gotta tell you, I watch it. You know, I got the DVD. I should probably get the Blu-ray. But for as much as I watch it, you know, I break it out every year or every other year or something and give it a watch. And it always just brings me back to the 80s, being a kid and trying to have not so many cares. You want to say not a care in the world. Well, I had all kinds of worries, and possibly even like ulcer, and you know, I remember having stomach aches as a kid. So it's not really fair to say, you know, being a kid, no worries, because I think I worried more as a kid than I do now. But I used to have a lot of stomach aches, you know, and just like, oh man. Anyway, don't get me started on my childhood, but it's fun to watch these movies that you saw as a kid, and just how like because obviously I seen this, the way I first seen this was recorded off TV. I can't remember how they did that nude woman scene, if they did the whole scene through with her like wearing a bathing suit possibly. That's the only thing I can think of. Most likely is how they would have had to do it, you know, film a television version of those shots. But even then, like it's just like looking at. I mean, the woman's not that amazing or whatever. Wouldn't kick her out of bed, but I mean, she's not amazing or anything. But as an adult, that scene is so ridiculous, like ludicrous to watch. Like, okay, this scene is just to get like a naked woman in the movie, and I don't have a problem with it. But it's so funny because, like when I was but see, if I saw the television version, like it'd be different. So you can't really base how I viewed that scene as a kid if it was the television. I'm pretty sure like later on, like I got the VHS previously viewed, from a video store. I can't remember when I actually would have seen the actual R-rated version, but there's not very much difference, Like the only difference would just be the naked chick, and I think like I don't think there was like any violence that was really cut from, this is rated, yeah, it would have been rated R to show the naked woman. This is rated R, I think. So I don't think there was really anything but the naked woman that was altered. I remember seeing Lyman Good getting run over, and I'm pretty sure this is when before I would have started seeing horror movies, because that even the TV version, which was I think the same as the normal version of him getting run over, was kind of traumatized me. I was like, wow. And I always thought it was weird that shot, that the expression the guy driving the car does when he runs him over. It's like, it just opens his mouth. He's just like, "Arr." He doesn't make a sound, but it's just like, and he's seen from the side because he's the profile of him driving. But that bit of him getting run over, because it was just like unexpected and just like, ugh, it kind of gives me chills even seeing it now or thinking about it. But obviously Roy Scheider kind of saves the day in the Blue Thunder helicopter, and I guess I don't need to spoil it any more than that. What would my star rating be? Oh, another thing before the movie's over that I have to comment on is the music's pretty epic, Oh, and another thing I got to comment on is this was in part written by Dan O'Bannon, a guy who gave us, Dark Star, and a little known film after that by the name of Alien. He was a Dark Star. You could see the little bit of Alien in Dark Star, interestingly. And so this was, co-written by Dan O'Bannon, who'd go on to, I think, I would imagine he wrote and directed his Return of the Living Dead or whatever. But, the humor, the humor is fun in here, and Jaffo. When I watch this, I want to get a Jaffo hat made, that'd be kind of fun. Just another fucking observer, Jaffo. And that one guy is like, hey, look up, look down, look right, look left, don't worry about it. Whatever he says. I tell you, the lines in movies from the 80s, and also when they're like, helicoptering around and with the camera looking at that cleavage and stuff, like the randomness of this movie and movies in general of like the 80s was just so fun. Like, oh my god, that's what I mean. Like they had a humanity. Movies had a humanity in them, and something that you can identify with. Movies now, and I've I've thought this way before the recent like explosion of AI in the last couple of years. Like I've thought this like maybe, I don't know, pushing 10 years back. Like, movies now, it seems like they're just made by AI. Like they're just so soulless for the most part, and this movie, watching a movie like this, revisiting it time and, every now and then from time to time is so fun and refreshing, and you're just like, oh yeah. And how the girlfriend, is kind of just, I don't know, it's almost like, why is she even in the movie? But then she becomes an integral part and helping Murphy. And what's so cool is that the helicopter just seemed so cool at the time, because he's making phone calls. He can do all this stuff, from the helicopter in the air, and he's like, calls his girlfriend and go get the tape out of the. One cool thing about this movie is, for drive-in movie enthusiasts, it's got like a drive-in theaters featured in the movie. And, from the chopper, he calls his girlfriend to go get the tape from the drive-in movie theater dumpster bin, and he can go there and help her and kind of, help her get to in the helicopter. He can help her get to the news station by blowing away, cops and stuff, just, so it's kind of a fun movie. What would my star rating be? What's realistically, I mean, I guess I can go as high as 3.5 stars out of 4 stars for Blue Thunder. Admittedly, it's probably a lot of that is just the nostalgia. Is it really a 3.5 star out of 4 star movie? It's hard to say. You know, when you grow up with something, it kind of, you know, I mean, it doesn't really matter because this is the experience that I experienced. This is the way the movie came into my life when I was young. So this is how I see the movie. So it doesn't really matter. Like, if I saw this now, what would I think? I mean, this is my experience with the movies, so I guess that's my star rating for it. Is it a 3.5 star movie? I mean, I get, you know, you could get into all kinds of whatever about that or whatever, but I guess for me, based on my history with the movie and how much I still enjoy it when you know, every now and then when I revisited it, we'll go for it. 3.5 stars out of 4. But if you haven't seen it, I'd recommend it. It's a fun freaking 80s movie. I mean, for me, like, you know, Roy Scheider, you can't really go wrong with Roy Scheider. So I mean, there's that going for it. You know, younger, chubbier Daniel Stern, probably just, you know, right, not long before he would end up doing Chud. So it's a fun 80s frickin', you know, it's funny seeing like the technology in this movie as being you know, so revolutionary when it's just so like archaic looking by today's standards. And one thing about the movie that I think you're supposed to kind of go wow at the very beginning when they're saying like the something, I'm paraphrasing, the technology and the this and that utilized in this film or seen in this film is being, you know, utilized today or something like that. Like, oh, great. So all this surveillance is and guns on helicopters flying over the city in your neighborhood is being utilized today. That makes me feel good. Like we're supposed to think, oh, cool, like that or something. When in fact the whole premise of the movie is like the nefariousness behind this helicopter and the reason they made it and stuff. And it's like, yeah, this technology is being used on you today. Like, oh boy, that's good to know. But yeah, I'm rambling at this point. I guess that pretty much does it for my Blue Thunder review. Like I say, possibly, you know, maybe this movie is what inspired Airwolf series, or the other way around, I don't know. But I think they both came, you know, both of these, you know, this movie, you know, and that television show came out relatively around the same time in history. So I guess that pretty much does it for my review. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. And as always, we'll catch you on the next video, or as Malcolm McDowell says in this movie, catch you later.